Could this be the end of Discovery? The United States government has recently announced that they will halt funding for the space program. For decades, the government has been funding the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA. The funding stopped shortly after the landing of the Curiosity rover. Without your help, that might be the last rover ever launched by the United States. The government has sponsored NASA and assisted in paving the path of exploration for many years. Some may argue the space program has cost too much and wastes our tax dollars. You have to remember, though, there will always be those people. Those people that put themselves before the good of progress. Those people that don't get gratification unless they get personally recognized. Yes, much of NASA is funding, if compromised by tax dollars. But do you really think tax dollars are going to decline if we abolish a small part of the budget? The government is not going to make you pay less. They're just going to spend the same money, your money, that normally goes into science and discovery, on things they think will be beneficial to the nation. Things like war, things like foreign invasion, things like destruction. So no matter what, we're going to be giving the same amount of tax dollars. Just what do we really want to give it towards? Now, let's take a look at what might happen if the government funding of NASA stopped permanently. NASA, to begin with, has always been underfunded and overlooked, so it really hasn't been that expensive after all. The agency would go bankrupt almost immediately. Nearly all of the employees who work on the program would be laid off, and the company would go into the pit of history, with all the other companies that died with good intentions. What happens next? Will everything space-related simply stop? No, of course not. Next, a big, already successful program steps up to the plate and starts their own business. But are the intentions of this new private company really to assist mankind? They've got no vector, they've got no rules. What are they really out to do? Or do they simply want the publicity and the sponsorship of other businesses? What about competitors? A big corporation steps up to be nationally or even globally recognized for reincarnating the space program. Do you think their competitors would take kind of this? Probably not. In fact, of course not. Competing businesses will begin their own space programs, thus continuing the cycle of corporate competition. Now, we have dozens of companies all throwing junk into space just to be better than the guys down the street. At what point does this begin an advancement for mankind and become just a business decision? Finally, let's take a look at this program as a whole. The National Aeronautics Space Administration, or the NACA, was formed in 1958 to replace the previous National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. The intention of NACA was to research aircraft and atmospheric operation. When the concept of manned spaceflight came about, the NACA was reformed and is now NASA, whose intention was to study the science of space and its effects on humans. This program was one of the major competitors in the space race. That started when the first cosmonaut, who launched Sputnik, was launched into space by the Soviet Union. This sparked a race for discovery between the Soviets and the United States, as to who can gain new knowledge first. Though many years of competition, this eventually led to the United States assisting Russia in their space programs, for the good of mankind. Without a functioning space program, who will step up to the plate? Who will take on the burden of the final frontier? We cannot fail to progress. Failure to progress is to recess. Whoever does take this space, whoever takes on the burden, we probably will not like it. So it's up to us to keep the space program going. It's up to us to keep NASA alive.